Hi everyone, and welcome to our lesson on compound interest. There's a few things that you're actually going to see in this video. Our agenda for this video is to first review simple interest, then to go over the compound interest formula, to do some sample problems, and then I want you to go online and complete the Canvas quiz. So for starters, let's do a quick review of simple interest. So if you remember, our formula for simple interest is I is equal to PRT. So when we studied this in the previous video, we saw that I stood for interest, P stood for principal, R stood for rate, and remember that our rate, we had to do that conversion where we changed our percent back to a decimal, and T was the amount of time that the loan was given, or the amount of time that passed, and you had to make sure that it was in years. So one thing to remember about time, just once again, it's expressed in years. And in a problem, if you're ever given months, you need to remember to divide by 12. For example, if you were given 3 months, you would do 3 divided by 12, which is equal to 0.25 as a decimal. So I would actually, in my formula, use the decimal version instead of using 3 months, because you cannot put months into these formulas. It has to be expressed in years. Okay, the same thing with, even if they had more than a year and they had 15 months, the same rule would apply. You would do 15 divided by 12, and it would give you a decimal value of 1.25, and that's the number that I would actually use in my formula. You would never use a number that is expressed in months until you convert it into years. Okay, so, and then some other things that we looked at was comparing simple and compound interest. So over here we have some of the big ideas that came out of our previous video over these comparisons. First of all, we had our simple interest formula. And then when you do this calculation, remember that formula is going to tell you the amount of interest that was earned for that principal balance. And after you find the interest, if you wanted to find how much total money, then you would end up doing the principal plus the interest to equal the total. This is different from compound interest, because compound interest, when I show you the formula does not tell you interest. The formula actually tells you the total. And if you have a problem that asks you about the interest, you have to go backwards and do the total minus the principal in order to determine how much interest was earned. So that's a big difference between these two formulas. Simple interest tells you the interest, and you have to add it to the principal to get the total. Compound interest tells you the total, and you have to subtract it from the principal to find the interest. Now, the approach that we're going to take to these problems is similar to everything that we've been doing with like volume. We did this in volume, we did this in Pythagorean theorem, and in some of the other units where we have worked with formulas. You need to make sure that you start out by writing down your formula on the page. After you do the formula, you're going to convert all of the numbers make sure all of the numbers are converted into decimals. So that percentage that we have, make sure that you convert it to decimal. If you have a number that is not in years, you need to make sure that gets converted to years. Then after you do your conversions, the next thing that you're going to do is you are going to substitute your numbers. And then once you substitute, then you can solve. And then the last thing that I have here on this slide is the assignment. Once we get done with this video, then you're going to be responsible for going into Canvas and entering these answers into your Canvas quiz. I'm giving you the answers for the first 2 problems. So make sure that as we're going through this, that you're writing down those 2 answers. And then when you log into Canvas, you'll do the other 3 problems on your own. Okay, now once again, the formula for simple interest gives us the amount of interest. And then for compound interest, the formula actually gives you the total amount. And we're going to have to do that extra step to find how much interest was added on. Now, something I want you to notice about the compound interest formula is it has actually the same variables as our simple interest formula. So once again, the reason that there's an A here is because this formula is going to tell us the total amount of money that is in the account. Our P still stands for principal. Our R still stands for rate. And just like we saw in simple interest, remember that our rate is always a decimal value, not a percentage. So you have to go through those conversions to convert your percents back to decimals. And then remember that the T still stands for time, and time is still measured in years. Okay, in this video, we're actually going to work through 2 example problems together, and then the rest of them, the other 3, you'll have to do on your own, and make sure that you go and put your answers into Canvas. Okay, so here is our first problem, problem number 1. Like I said, this is the first problem on the worksheet, and you'll do the rest of the problems by yourself on Canvas. So let's go ahead and start out. First of all, we have our formula. A is equal to P, 1 plus R, raised to the T. Remember, T is an exponential value. It's telling us that we are compounding annually, so that means every year. And he is making no additional deposits or withdrawals. And it's asking you, well, how much interest will the account have earned at the end of 8 years? So my principal amount that I'm starting out with is $1,200. My next thing in my formula is a parenthesis, so I'm going to write that in. 1 plus, now we have our rate. Here's our rate. Remember that we're not allowed to use a percentage. We have to convert back to a decimal, which is 0.08. And I'm doing this for 8 years. So I have my formula. I did all of the conversions I needed to make sure I convert the percentages and make sure my unit for time is in years. And then now I'm going to plug it into my calculator in order to get an answer. Now you should be able to see my calculator screen off to the left-hand side, and you'll see that it gives us an answer of a total amount of $2,221. And if I round that to dollars and cents, that makes it 12 cents. So far, what we figured out is this formula told us the total amount of money that was in the account. But the question asks us for how much interest was earned. So since we want to know the amount of interest, what we're going to do is we're going to take that total amount, which is the $2,221.12, and we are going to subtract our principal amount, which is the $1,200 that we started out with. And that's going to tell us that the amount of interest that was given to us and that was added to this account is $1,021.12. So again, this is my total, which is the number the formula gave me. I'm subtracting my principal amount. And to answer this question, my final answer is the amount of interest that was earned, which is the $1,021.12. So yes, we are going to use the formula, but you have to be able, on these problems, you're going to have to take it that extra step further and make sure that you do this subtraction to get your final answer. Okay, so let's go through this process one more time. I read through my problem. I find out that we are compounding annually. That means that I'm going to use my compound interest formula, which is A is equal to P 1 plus R raised to the T. Remember that this is telling me my total amount. I'm going to look at my principal, which is my starting amount, which is my $750 that I put into the account. I'm going to draw in my parenthesis, 1 plus, my rate is 6%. And again, remember those steps. We have to take that percentage and convert it back to a decimal, 0.06. And my time has to be in years. Thankfully, it is in years. And it's actually an exponent. So now I'm going to plug everything into my calculator. You should be able to see my calculator screen there to the left. And once I entered all of the information in, it told me that my total amount of money that was earned was $946.86. Remember that to round correctly to that hundredths place. And again, since this is a compound interest problem, it is telling me the total. Now, once again, this problem, if you read the wording carefully, it is not asking us for the amount, the total amount of money in the account. It wants to know how much interest was earned on the account. So that means that we're going to have to take this one step further. Now, I already know that my total amount is $946.86. $946.86. And I know that my principal amount was $750. And when I do that subtraction, I am ending up with $196.86 worth of interest that was added to my account. So once again, this is my my total amount of money in the account. This is my principal, which is the amount that I started with. And when I subtract them, I find out that $196.86 is how much interest was added to the account. And then this is the answer that I'm going to use, that you're going to use in your Canvas assignment. So remember that we are putting all of our answers in Canvas. Now we worked through two problems together in this video. In the first problem, we used the formula. And then because the problem wanted to know how much interest was added, we took it an extra step further and we had to do the subtraction. And that gave us a total amount of $1,021.12. Then we did the second example. Again, we used our formula for compound interest. After we found the answer and we found our total, we had to take it a step further to find out how much interest was added to the account. We had to do the subtraction. And that gave us an answer of $196.86 for problem number 2. So you're going to use these same steps to do problems 3, 4, and 5. Make sure that after you use the formula, because the problems are asking you about interest, you have to take it that extra step and make sure that you do the subtraction. That concludes our video on compound interest. If you are still struggling with this topic, make sure that you join me for our conference call on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 11. Thanks for watching.